Sarah sat down next to Rebecca and looked over her. She was always there for her. When her mother was dying and her father was too distraught to look at Sarah, Rebecca comforted her. The thought of ending her life and leaving someone who cared about her so much sickened her. Sarah couldn't help but feel terrible. She couldn't even imagine what Rebecca would go through if she were to die. I'm really, really sorry, Sarah said. Rebecca gave her a sympathetic stare and said, "It's okay, honey. It's hard to lose someone." Sarah nodded. At least she wasn't thinking about it anymore. She looked over to Danielle, who seemed to be resting. Is she all right? Rebecca shook her head and a frown formed on her face. She was violated. It happened a while ago. From what I can make out, she was violated repeatedly by bandits. Sarah jumped and said, "That's horrible." She remembered that Zeke told her about the man that attacked her on several days ago when it was just him and her, Clementine and Genevieve. He told her that the man was going to violate her, and she couldn't understand the concept given her sheltered life and overprotective father, so he explained it to her. She remembered how frightening she was at the idea of the man violating her. "Yeah, poor thing," Rebecca said. "So, all that yelling and crying?" Sarah said. "That was her. It doesn't help that her father was uncaring about what she went through. He just expects her to get over it," Rebecca said. She seemed angrily on Danielle's father. Sarah nodded while Rebecca sighed. "I wish there was something more I could do to help her. Is there someone else who can look after her while Nate's out?" "Probably another woman," Sarah said. Rebecca shook her head. "I don't think so. Sarita's gonna have her hands full soon with the new baby on the way. Shell's still over a mess over what happened with Vince and Bonnie. Patricia's looking after Gil. And there's me. I got a little girl and a toddler to look after. It'd be much beneficial for Danielle if she had someone on one-to-one time with her," Rebecca said. Sarah nodded. Her eyes widened and she said, "What about Julie? She had a son before all this." Yeah. She might be able to help Danielle," Rebecca said. She huffed before she got up, sleeping the child in her arms. "I'm going to put her to bed, and then we're going to need to talk." Sarah nodded in response before watched her as she went upstairs. She wasn't sure what the conversation between her and Rebecca was going to be like, but she imagined that there would be plenty of scolding. Zeke and Jane arrived at the community with Nate holding them at gunpoint. It was very difficult to see where they were going due to how dark it was. "Who's there?" the guard at the gate inquired, with the bright flashlight shined on them. While a gun was pointed at them, the other guard did the same. "Relax, amigo, it's just me," Nate said. The man grew in disgust and said, "Here, I was hoping you weren't coming back. The name's Antonio." "Whatever, anyway. You're gonna let me in?" Nate asked. The man, Antonio, the other guard, looked to Zeke and Jane. "Who are they?" Antonio asked. "A couple of troublemakers that Jonah might be interested in," Nate said. "One of them said they had a group ready to attack Hayfield. Another? God damn it, that's not good," the other guard said. Antonio grumbled to himself before he said, "I'll contact Jonah." He grabbed the radio from his belt and started talking to it. "Jonah, this is Antonio and Colton." A couple of seconds went by before a muffled voice was heard from the other end of the radio. Zeke couldn't make out anything what was said because he was so far away. All he could do was look at Jane. He seemed to have shared his concern. He felt like a trap. Neither of them trusted Nate. Sir Nate came back with a few prisoners. He claims that one of them has a group ready to attack. The voice was muffled and heard again. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." He placed the radio back on the belt and said to Nate, "All right, Jonah wants to meet him at the prison." He then pointed to the lever which opened the gate. Nate looked up and said, "Always a pleasure, amigo." Antonio grumbled to himself. Nate turned back to Jane and Zeke and made a gesture for them to head inside. They were reluctant, but they did. They went inside the community, and the community was like a real town, neither of which would thought they would see something ever like this again. But they heard that gate was now behind them shut. "Come on, we don't have all evening," Nate said. He looked at the lead while glancing back at the two. After passing a few houses, they came to a smaller house where 3 men stood. One man wore a brown leather jacket, a black plaid shirt, and a pair of blue jeans, and another brown boots. It appeared that he was balding. He didn't seem too physically opposing compared to the other 2 men. "Jonah," Nate said as he walked up to the man. You better not be wasting my time, Nate, the man said as he glared at Nate. So you said those two were part of the group that is getting ready to attack us. Is that right? Even better, that group that was going to attack you is already here, Nate said with a smile. How so? Jonah asked. I remember that group that Eddie brought back. They're conspiring to take everything from you as we speak, Nate said. Zeke's eyes widened. What was he doing? It was bad enough that he and Jane were in this mess, but now Nate was going to put the rest of the group in danger? That wasn't part of the agreement. He's lying, Zeke said. There are 50 men and women in my group ready to attack your community. They aren't in this group in that psycho's talk. Before Zeke could finish his sentence, he was hit by one of the men in the gut. Jonah wasn't talking to you, the man said. As Zeke fell to his knees and started coughing and wheezing, the man knocked the wind out of him. Thank you, Greg, Jonah said. He approached the boy and squatted down in the eye. Nate's a psycho, but he's a useful psycho. His words carry more weight than yours, so why should I believe anything you say? Zeke didn't answer. He watched Jonah stand up and look back to the guards. Jack, Greg, take them to the prison. I'll have a little chat with them in a few minutes. Yes, sir, the man Jack spoke. Zeke got to his feet and was sent to glare at Nate, who only shrugged his response. You betrayed us, Zeke said, before he was grabbed by the arm by Greg and dragged towards the prison. Jack made a gesture to the prison to Jane. Knowing that she was outmatched, she complied, and they went inside before Jag shoved Zeke into one of the makeshift prisons. Jane walked inside. Once they were forced inside by Jack and Greg, Jack shut the door and locked it. What are you going to do to us? Zeke inquired as he got up. Jonah will decide what's to be done with you two, Greg said. Till then, try to get some sleep. He walked away from the prison doors and Jack followed behind them and left the house. Damn it, Zeke muttered. I should have never trusted Nate. What was I thinking? Jane didn't respond. She walked over to the bed and sat down. She didn't move for several seconds or minutes. Zeke figured she was furious with him. I should have trusted your judgment when it came to Nate, Zeke said as he went over and sat in the opposite bed. Jane broke out of her trance and said, You're still a kid. I'm not blaming you for what happened. I'm trying to think of a way out of this. She remained silent after that. An hour passed before she heard the door open. They looked inside to see Jonah walk inside. He grabbed a nearby folding chair and placed it in front of the cell. He clapped his hands with a smirk on his face. Bravo, Jonah said, as he stopped clapping his hands. Your little group quite put on the show. I actually believe that they needed help and they were good people. But Nate has more experience with the more deceitful scavengers in this world than I do. By the way, adding the two young children and the baby with a nice touch, all of this to lower the guard down can stab me in the back. It would have worked out if Nate didn't expose your plan. Zeke and Jane didn't respond. All they did was stare at Jonah. Jonah scoffed and he said, At a loss for words, huh? Nate told us a bunch of weapons cache nearby at your people were going to use. I sent Jack out to find, and guess what he finds? A whole duffel bag of rifles, homemade bombs, and handguns. You wanted a war. That's not true, Zeke said. We don't know anything about that duffel bag. Unfortunately for you and your group, the evidence is still stacked against you, Jonah said. You two will die tomorrow in front of everyone, including your friends. They will be next. I will arrest them, all of them, torture them, and kill them. I might let the baby live since I'm sure she didn't have anything to do with this. Zeke and Jane were shocked upon hearing this. Please don't hurt them, Zeke said. He never wanted this. He had never pleaded for his life, but he was willing to plead for the lives of people he cared about. My decision is final, Jonah said. He then stood up, folding his chair back where he was. He turned to Jane and Zeke. Perhaps if it was a different time, I would have spared your people. But scavengers like you killed my wife and daughter. I will not let that happen the same way again. If this is what it takes to ensure my people's safety, so be it. Your execution will be tomorrow. With that, he left the building. Zeke fought back the tears. He couldn't believe this. Coming this far and becoming so close to reunite with his friends and girlfriend, he was going to die and the people that cared about were going to be next. He felt in Jane's arms around him, she was comforting him. She didn't say a word, but the fact that she was willing to comfort him showed that she wasn't the cold loner since she met a few days ago. He continued to cry until he wore himself out. A few hours passed before he felt someone nudge him awake. He groaned in response as before he opened his eyes. "Come on, kid, we don't have much time," he heard Nate's voice. His voice opened wide as he stood up. He glared at Nate and said, "You son of a bitch!" He went to attack Nate, but the middle-aged man grabbed his arms and forced him back. "Calm down," Nate said. Jane got up and grabbed Nate, placed a small knife against his throat. She must have concealed the knife from Jonah and his people. "Let him go," Jane said. Jane huffed and did what he was told. Zeke did not, his glare did not subside. He was furious with Nate. "You piece of shit! What the hell was that? You betrayed us!" Zeke hissed. "It's not that simple, kid," Nate said. "Start talking," Jane said as she pressed the knife against his neck. All right. There's no easy way to take out Jonah. This was the best I could think of," Nate said. "By betraying us and letting our group get killed?" Zeke inquired. "I had to make it look convincing to Jonah," Nate said. "And what's going on right now? Now I'm in the middle of the night, breaking you out of here. What do you think? Jonah is going to see as an empty cell and a dead guards outside?" "He's going to arrest our group first thing in the morning," Jane said. "That's right. Jonah's paranoid. And the last thing he needs to see another group of scavengers attacking Hayfield. The first thing he did when he left was to station 4 men at the houses that your group was to keep an eye on them," Nate said. "So with them under constant, which Jonah won't be able to arrest them without arousing suspicion amongst his people," Jane said. "That wouldn't matter to anyone like him," Zeke said. "True, but we're getting started now. If you want to be kind to us as to let me go and get to my house, we can proceed the next phase of my plan," Nate said. "I think you'll be better off on your own," Zeke said. "Fat chance. You're going to need somewhere to lie low," Nate said. "Unlike you, I know this community inside out. You're going to need my help. Otherwise you'll be captured within hours and I ain't doing another rescue." Zeke balled up his fist and glared at Nate. He didn't want to hurt him. Not again. He couldn't ignore the logic in Nate's reasoning. "Fine," Zeke muttered. "Don't make us regret this," Jane hissed before she withdrew the knife and shoved Nate forward. Nate regained his balance and went back towards the two. "Thank you for your cooperation," Nate said with a smile. "You're the definition of an asshole," Jane said. Nate's smirk remained as he said, "Follow me." He led them out into the prison and throughout the town. He led behind the houses within the town. He made sure that it wouldn't be seen by anyone, but considering how it was in the middle of the night, that probably wasn't going to be a problem. Finally, they approached a small house. He pulled out a key and unlocked the door, and they went inside. Once inside, they noticed the table was covered with letters. "What's this about?" Zeke asked. "The truth about Jonah. He has his whole meat locker within the factory," Nate said. "I thought the only proof you had was Jonah was a cannibal was because you observed them around the surrounding farms," Jane said. "I did. What do you think I was going to do while you were locked up?" Nate said. "Jonah withdrew the most of his guards to have a meeting about your group, and it gave a small window for the meat locker. Turns out there's 2 sections. The first section is used to cover up some case manages to peek inside, a false wall that Jonah builds to hide this section where the bodies are prepared for a meal." "How did you figure all that out?" Zeke asked. "Within minutes," Nate said. "I've been doing this for a long time, kid. This isn't enough. You'll have to do more than this if you want people to start questioning Jonah," Jane said. Nate smirked. It was almost unsettling. "Don't worry. This is only the beginning," Nate replied. And that, my pretties, was Old Scars, a Walking Dead fanfiction written by WalkingDeadRox. Oh boy. I definitely have to say right now that I haven't touched a Walking Dead fanfiction in like a really long time, actually. I mean, I know I haven't touched a Walking Dead story in a really long time. I think the last time I touched it was, well, not counting the Captain Feather story and Lily story. Well, it kind of does because, I just finished that story up, this year. I mean, I don't know why it took, almost 2 years for me to complete it, but finally was able to complete that one. But getting off topic. The last time I actually did a real, Walking Dead story, if you guys are wondering. I mean, it's a Telltale Walking Dead story. So I can definitely say right now that the last time I did a really true Walking Dead story, quote unquote, was Out on a Limb, which that was last year. Like, I did that last year, and that one was actually a really good story. I personally liked it. I thought it was a fun story. And, looking at it now, I mean, I really like doing these Walking Dead stories. They're pretty fun, to be honest, and they're really really good to read, especially with, concepts and stuff. They're pretty fun. I personally like them. So, I mean, I know I haven't done one in a really long time, so I thought, maybe I should do one, cuz why not? Um Now, in all due reality, this is written by WalkingDeadRox, which of course I also read his other story, Tender Moments, which was another story I also read last year. So, anyway, I think I should get on with this story. What did I personally like about this? Well, first off, I liked the plot line. I thought it was really interesting. It's like an alternative version of, it's an alternative version of the Walking Dead Season 2, which honestly I thought that was pretty cool. I personally like this story. I thought it was really neat. Like, it has a really good plot line and stuff. It honestly follows a really good plot. It's it's a really fun story to read. I personally really enjoyed reading this. When I first saw this, I was like, "Oh my god, this is just a really good story." And it still is. I mean, I still personally enjoy how well this story is, especially with, the concept and stuff. But given the fact that this story actually provides somewhat of a interesting, concept, I personally liked it. Now, anyway, with that being said, I know this story isn't really completely finished, from what I've been told by the author. So, yeah, I'm only reviewing this now because since it's not finished, but, I'll if this story ever gets updated, I will continue to read this one once this one gets updated. If it ever gets updated, but I still enjoy this story though. I do like the concept. I thought it was really neat and well made. I like the fact that, Clementine is being, was to be, Carver's heir, which Carver wanted, but he ends up failing. Honestly, it's kind of like a little bit of it interesting, thinking that, Carver wanted Alvin and Rebecca's child to be, his son, when in all reality it was Alvin's or something like that. I mean, it's a crazy theory about that, but it's still a pretty good concept. I mean, I like the concept of this story. I mean, certain characters get killed off at different points of it and stuff. And I like the character Zeke that WalkingDeadRox included in it, which I thought that was really nice. But I'm already wondering as to what's going to really happen. But until this story gets updated, this is where the review is going to be pretty much there for now. Now, like I'm just going to say before, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these stories. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 10 out of 10. While it's a really great story, I personally liked it. I do really hope that this gets updated in the future because I really would like to read more of this if it ever gets updated. But until then, we're not really sure when it will ever get updated, so I'm kind of wondering about that myself. But hey, I guess we could just play by ear and see what happens. So yeah, I can't seem to find anything I did not like about this story. I personally thought it was really good. It's an alternative way of The Walking Dead. It's pretty nice alternate universe. It's an alternate storyline. But anyway, what did you guys personally think of this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If I'm missing something, let me know. As always, I'm the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when it uploads. That way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, if you guys want to go check out my DeviantArt, link to my DeviantArt will be in the About page section. If you guys want to go check my Twitter out, link to my Twitter account will be in the About page section as well. So you guys can go follow that. Also, if you're interested in subscribing to my backup channel known as Miss Dark Shigo, link to that will also be in the About page section, so you guys can go check that out. So as always, and I'm always going to say, if you guys want to voice your own opinion on this story, let me know what it is in the comments below. And as always, roll the outro, because I'm out.